it's not a home. Going through the motions, killing time, waiting for a reason or a sign. Before I fall, I need to know, are you still holding on? Have you lost hope? 'Cause it's not fair to keep me close with broken promises. I need you to let me go.
Intensely sends it to the outside. He can't get there. Kevin King is going to win the Bar Visual FTF Cup Series.
Into the lead. Bud gets wrecked in front of the pack. He saves it. 3-4 wide as they come to the white flag.
Here comes Vargas down on the apron. They are 5 wide. Ian Plash will win it at the line. Is this package? Oh, there goes Jordan Lopez Jr. That's your race leader. Caution flag is out.
Still no one willing to give up as they're going to be dead even off of the first chicane.
Oh, he saves it. What's going to happen here? Here comes the canvas. Oh! Get your foot there.
He's got it. He's got it. Get there. No.
Canvas is in. The quest to the holy grail of eNASCAR competition starts tonight at the world's center of racing. More than 1,000 drivers begin the journey through the Road to Pro ladder tonight with their eyes set on being the top 70 in points, one step closer to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to FTF.GG's coverage of the opening race for Round 1 of the 2023 eNASCAR Qualifying iRacing Series, live from iRacing's virtual Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida. We're promoted this year, guys. Second split, no more. We're covering the top stuff. All the heavy hitters this season is what you get to see here on FTF. Glad to have you with us. Jacob Pitts, James Pike, Caleb Hoffman with you. Justin Malillo is serving as our in-house Larry McReynolds, and Zach Johnson, our producer for tonight, as always. James, the three of us have seen a lot of racing here at Daytona over the last week or so through FTF, through the Coke Series. This is a little bit different. Not the next-gen cars, but the trucks. So what do we really expect as far as how this race could play out? We saw how wild things can be both Tuesday in the Coke Series and last week in the FTF 500.
The road to $300,000 truly starts here. With all due respect to our good friend Evan Pisoko, this is where the road to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series begins. All drivers with above a 2.0 safety rating and a Class A oval license are eligible to compete tonight. They are separated in fields by iRating. You'll have something in the ballpark of as many as 15 to 20 splits, and we will eventually whittle that down over the course of the first half of this year in order to get our top 70 in points that will take us into round 2. But this is Daytona. This is top split. This is just wacky as it always is. Plate racing always has so many variables that are attached to it, and nothing is ever truly in your own control. I think that maybe more than anything else is the point to emphasize coming into tonight. Yes, you go pretty much anywhere else, and whether or not you win or lose this race is entirely in your hands. But we saw it with Casey Kerwin on Tuesday night. He was leading coming out of turn 4 and about in as perfect a position as you could ask for, and still managed to get passed by Tucker Minter coming to the checkered flag because, as he said, when you're the leader here, there's not really much you can do. You're just a sitting duck. So, yes, you will need to position yourself well. Yes, you will need to put yourself in the right places. But in addition to that skill, it does take a little bit of luck to be victorious at Daytona tonight.
Caleb, when we visited this track last year, obviously different split, different drivers. We went wire-to-wire caution-free. Top split a year ago saw 4 caution flags. So really, two different dynamics coming in. We could see them wad them up a couple times. We could see a clean race, and that clean race could open up the door for strategy because they can't quite make it the 40 laps on fuel that the Cup cars can around here.
Yeah, and with the trucks, it is such a different battle here. And especially, this top split has seen so much fluctuation from the field last year. Because looking at the field in top split last year, we had 11 drivers that moved on and 6 that now find themselves in the Coke Series today. So a lot of new faces here for top split. And that should really shake up how we see the racing here tonight. Again, was really surprised last year when we saw a wire-to-wire race. So I expect to see a few accidents here with these trucks because there is little margin for error, but we'll see as we get going here.
Trucks are grinning on the racetrack right now, so why don't we take the time here and get us set to go from the Daytona International Speedway and run you through the 35 trucks that are set to go for tonight's opening race in the eNASCAR Qualifying iRacing Series. Pole position tonight belongs to Jarrett Liebert. Dominic Lukmanski lines up on the outside. Drew Freinars and Jack Nichols in row number 2. Daniel Buttafuoco, we saw him make contender last year. Very strong. He lines up in position number 5. Casey Tucker lines up 6th. Nicholas Vroman in 7th. Blake McCandless, he's our in-race reporter tonight. He rolls off from 8th. Christopher Peffer in P9. And Eric Royce rounding out the top 10. James.
Boyd Hogan rolls off from the 11th spot. 12th on the grid is where you'll find Larry Pace. Cody Terlindi starts 13th to his outside, Seth DeMerchant. Andrew Navarro, who made it to round 2 last year, rolls from the 15th position. 16th is where you'll find James Holzer. Ray Alfalla making his first ever start in the eNASCAR Qualifying iRacing Series starts 17th place. Crawford 18th. River Hayes and Joel Blewett round out the top 20.
Moving back on to P21, that's where you'll find Kyle Dragon with Dalton Collins starting alongside him in row number 11. Joseph and Kenny Brady in row 12. Brian Mercurio starting from the 25th position here tonight. Michael P. Frisch alongside him in 26th position. Brian LaPrade, a familiar face for us, 27th, with Brad Mayhart at his outside in 28th position. Logan Clampett and Eduardo Oliviero will round out your 15th row.
Adriano Pinheiro is in 31st. Justin Trombley to the outside. Jake Nichols, Justin Yee, and Kwame Scott rounding out the field of 35 here in the top split of race 1 at Daytona. Let's take a look at the ladder here quickly of what these drivers need to do. James Pike alluded to it a little bit earlier on tonight as to the path that these drivers must take. Round 1 starts tonight here at Daytona. We'll pull this graphic up for you. It's open to anybody that has an A license in the sim on ovals 2.0 safety rating or higher. The top 70 in points move on to round number 2, and points are set pretty much by split. You win the top split, you're going to get more points than the winner of split number 2, split number 3, and so on. At the end of the season, the top 20 drivers from round 2, they will move on to the eNASCAR Contender Series, where they will battle it out with the bottom 20 from the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series points from this year. The top 20 then from Contender, they move on to the Coke Series. The bottom 20, they go home. And that's why we're seeing some folks like Ray Alfalla in the mix here, having to come back from the outside to get back in to try and get himself on top and getting Coke glory once again. The field is set to go. The pace car headed to pit lane. 80 laps around Daytona International Speedway. Green flags in the air. The eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series is green. As the field makes their way up to speed at Daytona, Jarrett Liebert leads the inside line. He's got Dominic Lukomsky to the outside. They'll be side by side headed to turn number 1, double wide pretty much throughout this whole field, James.
Double wide. I think the dynamics of which lane will be able to do what should be different, just because these trucks are so much different to the next-gen counterparts we see in the NASCAR Cup Series and in Class A racing and in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. With those cars, we saw how much speed the outside lane in particular had, but these trucks punch a much bigger hole through the air. There is much more drag on these vehicles, and it probably is going to be a little bit more even in terms of strength between the inside and the outside lines. Nobody really going crazy with movements just yet, but that is bound to change over the course of the next 80 laps.
Well, didn't take long. Seth the Merchant, 3 wide up on the outside line. He was part of Contender last year. Saw a lot of his Altus Esports teammates make the Coke Series. Michael Cozy Jr., Ryan Doucette, Tucker Minter, who won on Tuesday night. Here comes the Merchant. Round the outside. Has some help up there. Andrew Navarro pushing him. He's got the 22 behind him as well down the back straightaway.
And you can see another difference with these trucks as well. You saw that was 4 trucks up on the outside line that had to kind of work together there to get around. And that's so much different in the next-gen cars where it feels like you can just generate a run out of nowhere. With these trucks, there's a lot more forethought that you're going to have to put into thinking about your moves and just surveying where you should go each and every lap on the racetrack here.
The Merchant poking his nose out in front. Still Liebert leading on that inside line. Ray Alfalla into the top 10. He's the second truck up on the outside of the racetrack as the field makes their way down the back straightaway. And I'm surprised, James, that we're 3 wide this early on, just because there is a long way to go. And we already talked about a little bit the fact that fuel is going to have an impact here.
Definitely will have an impact. You are right on the edge of your window when it comes to the 80-lap distance we have this evening. You can make it a one-stop if this race is only 80 laps, but we do have green-white checkers that are available if we have a late race caution. If we use up all of our green-white checkers, you could add as many as 10 laps to the end of this race, and that will change pit strategy significantly. So a lot of drivers are going to be on their toes just in case, and we may see some drivers decide to short pit early, especially if you're in the back and you don't really have much to lose and you can go in with a few partners and create another draft pack. You could come in about lap 20 or so and all but ensure you only have one more stop to make. But that really only plays into your favor if we get a yellow at some point. So we'll just have to see whether or not it gets wrecky at the front, it gets crazy at the front, and whether or not we get an early or a yellow in the middle of the race to change things.
Nicholas Vroman has dropped out of the session. Hope he can get back in. Problem is, though, that he is not going to be on the lead lap whenever he gets back in. Kenny Brady on the outside in the 14, DeMerchant in the middle, Liebert on the inside. We're 3 wide heading into turn number 1.
And still, you see these 3 lanes right here. This outside lane led right now by Kenny Brady, starting to surge just a little bit. They've been trying to pull more trucks up here. And now you see this momentum really carrying them around the outside here at Daytona. Again, the longer way around the racetrack, but if you can keep your momentum up, it'll be the faster way. You see Kenny Brady now dropping down in front of Andrew Navarro, and it's going to be side by side for the lead out of 4.
Side by side, Brady on the middle line, DeMerchant leading the bottom. He will lead at the start-finish line. DeMerchant last year was in the top split race. He went to victory lane a season ago. Very, very strong when it comes to the plate tracks. And I know he would love to repeat and start out with a win. That's a huge boost in points. Winning the first race top split gives you a lot of points in your direction going through the rest of the season.
I think DeMerchant's going to be a very interesting case to watch regardless of what happens here, because he doesn't have the same help that he had a year ago. There were so many Altus Esports drivers that just missed the cut 2 years ago in the Contender Series. They came back down in the qualifying series, got themselves in the Coke Series this year, and DeMerchant's one of the few that sort of left behind here in the qualifying series, for lack of a better term. So he's not going to have as many opportunities to work with his teammates, but we know that Altus Esports has long been incredibly strong in their strategy and the way they approach these races. They've been sharp across the board when it comes to plotting out how they attack specific events. And even on his own, I would expect that Seth has some sort of game plan in his mind, or game plans plural, depending on how things go.
See a look from high above, leading the outside line. It's none other than Coke Series legend Ray Alfalla in the 7. 3 wide on the outside, has a little bit of help up there, and he's trying to scoot his way toward the front of the field. Got a couple of trucks up there to help him. Blaze Crawford is one. The 19 of Dalton Collins is the other. 3 wide back to turn 1.
And you see once again Ray Alfalla here trying to figure out a move like Kenny Brady just pulled off a few laps prior, where he was able to get that momentum right here out of turn 2. I just don't think he's going to have the help. Right now it is just him and Blaze Crawford, and not going to get it done that way. You see Bryler Pratt in the middle lane thinking about it, but isn't going to jump ship from this middle line for sure. So Alfalla and Crawford, it's a lonely life up here for these two.
Very racy at the front of the field. That third line up by the outside wall. Few but mighty up there on the top. It's only been a handful of trucks, 2, 3 at a time, but they're still making their way toward the front. It's just Alfalla and Crawford as they make their way back to the stripe into turn number 1. DeMerchant and Brady still wheel to wheel at the front of the pack. Still 3 wide at the front. DeMerchant leading the way. You've got Andrew Navarro there in the middle, pushing Kenny Brady as the field makes their way through 3 and 4. And we're 10 laps in here this time by. So we're looking at being close to the window here as far as if you want to pit or not pit. If you pit now, you're still going to have to pit one more time, but it might get you to the end in a little bit of a different fashion.
And I mean, that's just how unpredictable Daytona is. It's so hard to predict when cautions are gonna fall here, because they literally can occur every lap. You see up here at the front with the 3 wide racing that we have going on, one mistake from any one of these guys it can throw a huge wrench into this race. So trying to predict when those cautions fall is half the battle. And you know, whatever you feel is more likely going through this race will play into your pit strategy big time.
Brady getting pushed out in front. Just, I think, going to beat DeMerchant. Yes, at the line. Just by a nose. The margin 5/1000ths of a second. Still 3 wide, though, at the front of the field. Alfala trying to make that third line work. And something I'm curious about, James, is whether or not you could overheat by pushing too much like we've seen in the next gens here.
I don't think to the same degree that you will find in the next gens. I think they tend to run a little bit hotter, but it's certainly something these drivers are going to have to be mindful of, especially towards the end of this race. You can really give it maybe about, I'd say, 2 laps tops if you go full bore on the push before you have to back off of someone's rear bumper because you're going to overheat and blow your engine. So drivers are going to be mindful of that over the course of this entire race, and they will be very specific and particular in when they choose to push and when they choose to lay off and then push and lay off. It will be cyclical as they try and work their way towards the front of this field.
Off turn number 2 for the first time tonight. Let's talk to the man with the plan, not America's crew chief, but we'll go with Long Island's crew chief. Justin Malillo, what you got for us?
Thank you, Jacob. I've been taking a look at the list of drivers that we got in here because it's crazy that there are over 1,000 people trying for this, right? So we don't really know who we're going to get until we all get into the server. And just in this 35 truck field alone, we've got at least... I'm seeing 9 former Coke drivers. You've got both Jake and Zach Nichols, Brian Mercurio, Briar LaPrade, Casey Tucker, Ray Alfala, Logan Clampett, Brad Mahar, and Justin Trombley, all former Coke Series drivers. You've also got a bunch of people that were in the Contender Series, including Alfala, who fell out last season, including LaPrade, including Mercurio, who were all part of the Coke Series class that fell down to Contender and then fell down from there. You also got guys like Daniel Buttafuoco, you've got Seth DeMerchant, you've got Boyd Hogan, Blaze Crawford, Andrew Navarro, Christopher Pfeffer, and oh wow, it looks like we've got pit stops already, guys.
Yeah, here we go. That was quick. Something else got my attention, and here they come. Daniel Buttafuoco leads them down. Blake McCandless, Zach Nichols, Michael P. Frisch, Larry Pace, Eric Royce, all on the pit lane. The rest of the field still rolling down the back straightaway now, but already a little more than half a dozen cars crashing on the back straightaway. Upside down is Ray Alfala. Caution's out. Another car sideways in front of the field. Boyd Hogan. There is chaos all over this racetrack. Ray Alfala goes for a wild ride up and over. 3 wide off turn 2 did not work, and the former Coke champ has an early exit in the opening race here at Daytona. Caution for the first time tonight. Alfala in this, Liebert in this, Navarro involved. I think Dalton Collins got a piece. Yeah. 5 or 6 trucks involved. Here's the replay.
This is so tough because it very much immediately strikes me as a racing deal as I look at this. It's almost as if Alfala was sort of stuck in the middle as Andrew Navarro came down and Drew Freenage came up just a little bit. And I couldn't tell if Freenage got help. I think he may have, or maybe got loose or something. I'm not totally certain what got him sideways, but he gets into Alfala, who then gets into Navarro, and there's nothing that poor Jarrett Liebert could have done, who pounds the outside wall, and then Alfala ricochets off the back of Liebert's truck and goes for a wild ride down the back straightaway. A big incident there. And boy, do all the people who just came down pit road look like absolute geniuses, because now they will get the opportunity to stay out, and more importantly, they are good to go if we have a green-white checker. They will come down one more time for pit stops and be done. You would expect everybody else to come in now, but all the drivers, and I noticed there are a few names there from Norse Force Racing, Daniel Buttafuoco, Michael P. Frisch, Blake McCandless amongst them. So Norse Force trying to pull a page out of the playbook we've seen Altus Esports work from, and big brain the strategy, and it worked out in their favor almost immediately.
Man, oh man. So we've already got a couple out of the race. Cody Terlindi has parked the truck. He is done for the night. He got some damage in that crash. Most of the trucks that pitted right at the caution have stayed out. Eric Royce is your race leader. Fuel only amongst all of them, and fuel only amongst much of the rest of the field that pitted here under the caution flag. 17, make it 16 laps are complete here at Daytona. We'll reset. We'll recap the field here after this, here on FTF. Stay with us. We're back here from Daytona. Race number 1 of the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series. Jacob Hitz, James Pike, Caleb Hoffman with you. Justin Malillo as our crew chief for tonight. First caution, your top 07 pitted before the caution came out. Everybody else on the pit road as a result of the caution. So far, only one truck actually out of the race as a result of the crash. It's Cody Terlindi. Ray Alfala still on the pit lane. He had the tow after going up and over. Christopher Peffer is 1 lap down. Everybody else on the lead lap. Liebert and Boyd Hogan, though, they are just getting to turn number 3. They're not going to catch the back of the field before the restart. Green flag back in the air. 18 laps complete. You're at the World Center of Racing.
Buttafuoco, DeMerchant, Frisch, McCandless, lots of names that we've seen in the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series before up at the front. And in particular, keep an eye on Buttafuoco and McCandless and Frisch, all driving for North Force Racing, all just came down pit road right, and I mean immediately before the yellow flag came out. So now they have the track position, they have the ability to control this field from the front, and they have only one more pit stop to make before we're set to the end, which also means that most likely, Jacob, we're not going to see any fuel strategy tonight, because you would expect these drivers to come in at about 40 more laps, and that should give them the buffer to be good to go to the end, even if we do get a few green-white checkers. So this now almost becomes a just go race and don't even worry about trying to big-brain it with strategy. Just go beat everybody heads up kind of affair.
Now, they were racing pretty aggressively up at the front of the field, at least, under that first green flag run, and that was when the window of strategy was still open. If it slammed shut, as James just alluded to here, Caleb, I can only imagine how wild things are going to get here.
And again, if how they were racing before that caution is any indicator, we are going to be in for a wild one the rest of the way here. I mean, we were seeing 3 and 4 wide, and right now everybody looks to be content. I was noticing on that restart that everybody really wanted to get down to this bottom line, perhaps just to ride around at this point in the race, because again, we do just need to make it to the next round of pit stops, and then After that, you're just on your way to the end. But right now, either way, it's Buttafuoco and Royce up at the front, and they are commanding both these lines right now.
One truck blinking there in the middle of traffic. Not quite sure who that was. Might have been Kwame Scott. Nonetheless, everybody is still rolling and still up to speed as they make their way here down the back straightaway.
Continuing to cycle and roll it still, Buttafuoco in the middle, Royce up top. And Royce is also an interesting one to see here in the qualifying series, given just how successful he's been as a streamer on Twitch in particular. You can find him at his house, and he's done a lot of work and a lot of racing over the course of the past year in particular. So this is really one of the bigger stages he's been on in an official eNASCAR capacity, and I'll be curious to see what round one of this eNASCAR qualifying series looks like for him.
Really only one way to find out, though, right? Just kind of see what happens, and maybe that's the plan for tonight. But of course, we know that there are some folks that want to run the Road to Pro schedule this year, but are actually in Daytona right now, so they can't run tonight. Couple of folks are probably going to be making their first start next week at Las Vegas, or rather in 2 weeks. And Caleb, the only downside to that is you do get a drop week, but instead of being able to use that for a bad finish, you have to use that for missing the first race of the season. So you have no safety net then the rest of the way.
Absolutely. Not having that buffer is just huge for these guys. And, I mean, Daytona here is a wild card as is, so maybe it is good, maybe that you can kind of get it out of the way and just focus on the rest of the schedule here, where, I mean, it is a lot of tracks that here with the trucks can kind of race similarly, where you are kind of full throttle and trying to focus on draft, all that kind of stuff. Looking up, we have Vegas, New Atlanta, we're going to Texas, Bristol Motor Speedway on the concrete, Dover, Darlington, and Charlotte. So it's a good mix of tracks up here for the qualifying round of the iRacing series. But man, to miss Daytona, it's a big blow if you do run into problems later.
Just past the quarter mark here from Daytona. Daniel Buttafuoco leading on the bottom of the racetrack. Eric Royce leading on the top of the racetrack. Couple of slower trucks that they have passed. This is Adriano Pinheiro now that they're passing down the back straightaway. So they head back toward turn number 3, still side by side at the front, and it's too wide pretty much the whole way through the field, it seems like, at least up at the front of the field.
Just 2 by 2 by 2. I mean, I think at this point, if you're just riding around and waiting, that's not the worst thing in the world to be doing. I think your best case scenario here, you're just sort of hanging out and trying to click off laps. You're not necessarily trying to force anything. You want to get to about lap maybe 50, lap 60 before you really try and start pushing the envelope to even think about going to the front. And if you're up here and you're any one of the NFR drivers or you're Eric Royce, it's all about how can you maintain the track position, potentially block runs coming from maybe the top or the bottom in order to stay near the front and give yourself a chance to win this race come lap 80. But that is the biggest key of all. Do not beat yourself early. Give yourself a shot to do this when the checkered flag falls.
Great point. You don't want to put yourself in a bad position, since you know you do have to pit one more time. But then really just kind of roll it up and have at it at the end of this deal. 25 laps complete. Daniel Buttafuoco is your leader, and Caleb, he led a good portion of the first half of our second split race a season ago before getting turned as the race leader down the back straightaway. It was not enough to bring out a caution, and that took what could have been a race win for driver number 23 and put him at the back of the field. He was still able to make it to contender. You got to keep that in mind, but what could have been if he could have gotten a win to start the season here at Daytona last year?
Yeah, and again, winning here tonight is such a huge, it's a confidence setter. You come in and it builds momentum on for the rest of the rounds, which is again what you so desperately need here as this pack tries to navigate around some lap traffic on the high side, excuse me. But Daniel Buttafuoco here, if he can come out here and get a win, again, it's just a great thing to have in the back of your pocket. It's not going to be like some of your other points formats that you see where a win today automatically advances you on to the contender round or anything like that. But it does kind of just set a trend for you, hopefully, where you can come out here and get good finishes and just be consistent trying to make the next round.
Field makes their way back to the start-finish line. Buttafuoco continues to lead. Michael P. Frisch sits third, second on the inside line. Don't Look Now set the Merchant back into the picture here in that black number 5. Second on the outside, trying to push Royce here to the front, or maybe trying to push him out of the way.
Maybe. I can't really see anybody trying to really do much wild here. I look through this pack, and it really is just a matter of clicking off laps, clicking off laps, clicking off laps. So you still have about 30 laps until the next pit stop, which you would expect to take place somewhere in the ballpark of lap 50 or so. So I don't know if anybody's really going to even try and build the notebook of things that you can or can't do. We saw Ray Alfala try to do it early in the first 10 laps, and what happened to him? He got wrecked. I almost wonder if that scared the field into just riding around in this gigantic pack of 2 rows and just see if they can't, click off some of these laps until we get towards the end of this race.
And that's typically what we see. I think part of Daytona is just trying to wind the clock a little bit, take some time off, and click laps off, like you said. Try and make it to the end. So that way everybody at least has a little bit of a better shot to move on. We'll have to wait and see, though. The field makes their way through turn 4. Buttafuoco, your leader. Frisch is second. McCandless side by side with Royce for position number 3. And you are double file all the way back to Andrew Navarro and company. Your top 21, all under a blanket here at the front.
And there's just a lot of give and take right now here, before halfway, still in the early stages of this race. And this is what you're going to see, I feel like, for the next 20, 30 laps where it is just going to be these 2 lines riding around, and you see the top really start to advance on the straightaway, and then that bottom in the corner where it is the shorter way around the racetrack really start to progress a little bit. But can't say anything different here other than just, like you said, clicking off laps. Trying to get around lap traffic is huge right there. Might see a little shakeup now. Frisch and the Merchant going to be able to, or Buttafuoco, excuse me, going to be able to get back down on the bottom lane. But I think you're just seeing these guys, just stay competitive in that they want to remain single file, don't want to go to a single file formation, anything like that. But more importantly, you don't want to take yourself out here on lap 31 like we've seen with a few cars, and one off the pace right here.
Oh, that's Boyd Hogan. Now remember, he was involved in that crash to start the race. Not to start the race, but you know what I mean. Around lap 15 or so. And Jarrett Liebert's also back in the pit lane after being involved in that crash. So some issues for both of them. And Hogan just tows it back to the pit lane right now. Ray Alfala, he's still sitting on the pit lane now for more than 15 minutes. Buttafuoco still your leader. 31 laps complete. We're closing in on the halfway point. There's still a long way to go.
And these are drivers that aren't going to make any sort of wild moves or anything unanticipated at this point, because remember, these fields are set by strength of field. These splits are separated by all of the iRatings of the drivers at the very top end. This is the best of the best on the oval side of iRacing, and our SOF tonight, almost a 7,900, which for what it's worth, the Coke Series traditionally has ballparked somewhere in the 6,000 range. There is a lot of truth, Jacob, but it's a topic we talked about throughout the years in these broadcasts, the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series, that in some cases, the top split of the qualifying series is arguably more competitive than the Coke Field on some nights because it takes just astronomically high iRatings to get to this point. To think that the average here is almost 8,000 is absolutely absurd.
I'm gonna. Wow. All right. So we heard something through the session that some things have happened in the second split. I believe Justin Malillo has a report for us. I just watched the video and it is a sight to behold. What on earth?
I honestly, I can't explain it. It does look like something may have happened to Ashton Crowder, I believe it was, the 8 truck in second split. There was an incident, a caution didn't come out, the field came around, and he was still sitting in the middle of the track, and they all piled in, and that is a very unfortunate way for many of these hopefuls for their race to end, for sure.
Trash heap. That's a good dozen trucks involved in that. Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah, not good. Not good.
We got out at a good time, I think, guys. Oh, brother. That'll be on the not top 10 at best. All right. Well, 34 laps are complete. Daniel Botafuco is your race leader. They come down the back straightaway. Running out of time here to get to halfway.
Just as I go back and watch that, the degree to which that is going to earn someone a nice long vacation is we cannot understate that. They may as well go ahead and verbo some residents in the islands because they're going to be out there for a while.
Yeah. So just an update, by the way. I'm sure some of you are already keeping one eye on this and one eye on the real world stuff. But 2 to go in duel number 2. Todd Gilliland is your race leader.
You mean Cozy?
It sure looks like Cozy. Same paint scheme. And, man, 2 cautions short. If he didn't have those 2 cautions, he would have won that race. But I know he was really glad that his teammate Tucker Minter got the job done. Not his FRM teammate, but his Altus teammate. And somebody he was trying to work with to get him to victory lane. Cozy came home with the top 5, nothing to sneeze at. And a great start with points. They're coming to the white flag in duel 2. Almirola to the outside. It's a Ford party at the front. Larson trying to spoil it, but he's pretty much boxed in. Almost wrecks Gilliland going to turn 1. Meanwhile, we're down the back straightaway. I feel like Kevin Harlan all over again. 36 laps complete. Gilliland gets turned by Larson. The inside checks up. Everybody's good. Almirola, Cindric, LaJoy, the breakaway at the front. And it's those 3, I think, that are going to sort it out for the duel.
If we're just going to do this, let's do it then, because here comes Austin Cindric out of 4 behind Almirola. He'll have some sort of run coming down the front straightaway, but it won't be enough, and Eric Almirola will go to victory in the real-life second Blue-Green Vacations duel at Daytona. How about that? We could do 2 races at once here on FTFGG.
And how about Connor Daly? He has advanced to the Daytona 500 after an earlier wreck. When Kyle Busch got turned in front of the field, Travis Pastrana and Austin Hill were both taken out of the race in that wreck, and Connor Daly will advance.
Half a lap behind the field.
that is tough scenes for Hill, who's going to miss the race, but how about it for Connor Daly?
Well, and let's talk about that, too, because in that crash, Pastrana absolutely obliterated Austin Hill and turned him into the wreck. So that was nothing of Austin Hill's doing there. He checked up for the crash. Pastrana a little slow on the brake pedal, and both cars junked. The 67 locked in on speed from qualifying last night. And Eric Almirola gets his lone win of 2023 in the duel. And the field is set.
That's harsh. Jeez.
Well, I'm sorry, but the truth hurts sometimes. And
this is
of
a man
course,
who went to victory in New Hampshire in 2021. Thank you very much.
Hell of a save
Yeah.
by Gilliland there, though.
Yeah,
I thought he was gone. Yeah. I looked up, saw him on the apron, sparks flying, and thought, yep, okay, here we go. We're going to tear some stuff up.
No, you know who you need to go find where to place your futures bets and whose crystal ball to go absorb the power of? Some Dennis James fella who's got a new podcast or something or other may or may not have said that the Fords were going to be the ones to beat, and outside of the traditional speed that Hendrick Motorsports has in Daytona 500 qualifying, you look at a lot of the top 10, you look at both of your dual winners tonight, as we see a change for the lead. Here comes Larry Pace on the outside, trying to draw even with Daniel Buttafuoco as we go into turn 3 in our race here on iRacing, but the Fords outside of Larson and Bowman are just dominating the top 10 of the starting grid for the 500 on Sunday.
And we'll see how it works out for him. Nonetheless, halfway here at the start-finish line in our race, Daniel Buttafuoco, your leader, Larry Pace on the outside, and 40 down, 40 up. I did that backward, but I don't care. I believe I understand that we have a replay of the carnage that occurred in second split. Yeah, here we go. This is from our friends at FTN, and whoopam. Yikes.
Whoopam, don't you mean and boom goes the dynamite?
Something like that. There's some drivers in that split that are not going to be as cool as the other side of the pillow. Does that work for you?
Hey, Stephen A. is a fellow Winston-Salem native, so yeah, give it to me every day of the week.
Well, I wasn't quite going him. I was thinking more Stuart Scott, rest in peace. But
Or rather,
Hey, you know.
I take that back. I mixed myself up. Stuart Scott
okay.
is a win- yeah. Mea culpa editorial note for the group here. Stuart Scott is a Winston native. Stephen A. Smith is a Winston-Salem State alumnus. So I wasn't totally off base. I just mixed my words up a tad.
there you go. It's all right. These things happen.
That's true.
ATVO is projecting about a half hour to go here from Daytona. Buttafuoco and Pace side by side at the front. They are going to have to make one more pit stop. They've been out here for roughly 30 laps, just about. And I'd imagine, Caleb, that we're probably going to see these guys head to the pit lane. Maybe in the next 5 laps. They should be able to make it to the end.
Yeah, and on that initial stint that we had, it was around lap 14 where we saw people start to come in on that split strategy. But, as we alluded to earlier, with that caution that came out, everybody's just going to kind of be on one cycle here. And, it's going to be any time here within the next 2-3 laps even, I'd say, where we're going to start seeing people peel off here. And again, it's so difficult, especially for these guys on the outside trying to coordinate their way onto the pit lane. Something to watch out for here, because we've seen so many times in the qualifying series that, one mistake on a green flag pit stop can completely take you out of the race. And if you do make one of those mistakes, and not only can you lose spots, you can, if you're at the tail end, lose the draft entirely and take yourself out of contention here. So something to watch big time for sure is it's still DeMerchant and Larry Pace out front.
That's Buttafuoco, by the way. Set the Merchant third up on the
keep
outside
doing that,
line.
yeah.
But yeah. They're close. They both have black on their trucks, I guess. All right, well.
One's a Chevy, one's a Toyota,
Both made contender last year, so again, I guess. All right, so Buttafuoco.
That's a really good point. I think it's worth talking about Buttafuoco because remember, he was the first one on the cut or the outside of the cutoff to the Coke Series. So of all the drivers in the qualifying series across all splits, Daniel Buttafuoco is our highest finishing driver in points returning to the series this year. You can't tell me he's not motivated to go one step further and make it to the Coke Series in 24.
There's no doubt that he wants to do that this time around. Former NASCAR Heat Pro League driver, turned to iRacing, and turns out he's fast on both. He's trying to start the season out with a win here from Daytona. We're closing in on stops here from Daytona, which will be our last pit stop of the day, rather of the night.
still looking right now. I mean, everybody again has for the last 25, 30 laps they've been content riding in this pack right here. I just think you got to get coordinated here, and you got to start just communicating a little bit with everybody around you. When you have to come to the pit lane, you see, I mean, Kwame Scott's thinking about getting to the inside lane, and here you do see this is Kenny Brady tried to get down in front of Joel Blewett and did not have the room to operate there. It's just it's going to be so difficult for these guys because you do have the chance that there is one of these guys on the inside that isn't pitting, and you don't want to cause a collision or an incident there.
When you wonder with the drivers starting to want to get to the bottom of the racetrack, if that means that they're going to be pitting here shortly. I know Justin Malolo in our ear is telling us that pit windows should be open right now to make it to the end on fuel. Still 28 trucks on the lead lap. Buttafuoco, your leader, and we're getting close to crunch time. Larry Pace finds a hole. He drops to the bottom of the racetrack. He gets in line. And I think we're inching closer here, James, to green flag pit stops here at Daytona.
The biggest question I have in my head is, do you want to be on the early end of this window, given that, remember, you go back to the beginning of the broadcast, we said that the window for all three green-white checkers, if we need them, is about 10 laps. So if you want to make sure that you're certain,
here we go.
Come down around lap 50, but we've got people coming in more towards the back of the field. I think. That's a big shot.
Oh, and they are crashing.
Yep, Lukumski is one of them, and James Holzer the other.
And Kwame Scott went around on his own trying to get on the brakes to avoid them. So 3 trucks crash. Coming onto pit road, I think Holzer gets the worst end of that deal. And you talked about having to be perfect on pit road, Caleb. That could open up the window for you or maybe others to splinter off, lose the draft. And if you don't have enough trucks in that draft, it's really going to hurt you once you get back up to racing speed. And you're going to lose the draft if you don't have enough partners with you as the field makes their way off 4. And here comes much of the rest of the field.
I hope everybody here gets on cleanly. And I mean, when you're talking about making mistakes here, I mean, still really close between your leaders, Buttafuoco and Royce here. But again, when you're talking about mistakes, you don't really have something of that magnitude in mind where you are literally crashing on the pit lane. So not only do they have damage, it was Eric Royce just missed his box and made contact with the wall. And he's, I mean, just again,
there it is.
I don't know if it's a lack of practice or what, where that's going to hurt him. He came in one of the first few trucks here, and I don't know where he's going to cycle out.
That's race ender, I think, for him, as far as where he was at in the draft. He finally gets it going, but he is the only one left on the pit lane. Holzer had a meatball flag, but it wasn't there for very long. It must not have been that severe because it went away from my screen as quick as it appeared. 3 more trucks to the pit lane here. Justin Yee, Jake Nichols, River Hayes. Still 9 cars have yet to pit. DeMerchant, Freinage, Joseph, Kenny Brady, Trombley, Clampett, Oliveira, Maher, and Navarro. All have yet to come out of the pit lane. Remember, Navarro involved in that crash earlier tonight.
You'd think they'd probably come down now. There's not really much to wait on. We saw the North Force drivers come down last time by 2 laps ago, and we'll see whether or not everybody else decides to come in yet. But no, a split decision here. So the front 4 will stay out, and Trombley, Clampett, Oliveira, and Navarro, the 4 that come in on lap 51.
And none of them sped. Somehow. I thought Trombley was really going to overdo it, but he was able to lock him up and get on to pit lane without speeding. So everybody else here, DeMerchant, Freinage, Joseph, Brady, Maher, all are going to have to pit here within the next 2 laps, so they're going to run out of fuel. Larry Pace, I think, is going to cycle around to be your race leader, and he has a good 20 cars or so. Maybe let's go 15 in his lead pack, and here they all come to pit road. DeMerchant leading them all.
And it looks like everybody so far going to get on there cleanly. A good round by everybody there. But I liked what you were talking about there, Pike, just, how many times have we seen here at Daytona, especially where you're shooting for that magic lap of 80 in this case, and then when you get a green-white checker too, you have to come back down the pit lane and sacrifice all that track position that you worked up for. So I like pitting on the later end here, where if you do, potentially have to use these green-white checkers, you have extra fuel in your back pocket, so you don't have to be one of the ones coming down the pit lane later on in this race. So I like the call here from this is DeMerchant, Brady, Brainage, Mehar, all these guys up here. Just a good call from them, and I think it'll pay off for them.
3 wide in this pack that is trying to cycle back out in front. DeMerchant, your leader, but they're going to get swallowed up. 4 wide down the back straightaway as they're trying to blend. This could get ugly. Larry Pace up in front of McCandless. Barely a spot in line. Now he's going to go to the outside of Brady. And DeMerchant going to go into the wall. Back up into the outside wall. Up and over. A horrible crash in turn 3. Trombley flying through the air. The 17 also involved. That's Casey Tucker. And a lot of damage to a few trucks. And we're back under the caution flag. Daniel Botafuco with big damage in the 23. He has a meatball flag. And the dominant truck of the night is not going to finish at the front of the field.
No one wanted to give. No one wanted to give because they knew how important track position was going to be. And in that sense, I'm not surprised at all to see that. I figured once everybody was going 4 wide down the backstretch, you can't do 4 wide here in the corners at Daytona unless you get an absolute miracle. They were trying, and I couldn't tell who that was. Looked like it was maybe Zach Nichols, who was sort of caught in between two minds and didn't necessarily commit to tucking in behind the lap cars, but also didn't necessarily commit to going 4 wide either. It looks like, though, this actually starts with Trombley and whoever was to his outside, which I believe, if we get a good look at this, was Casey Tucker. I think Trombley gets up into Tucker, and that just sets off the chain reaction. Yep, just a little bit of contact there between that, and then Tucker comes right back down the track and I guess pays Trombley back for that initial contact, almost say, you're going to ruin my race, then I'm going to get you. Although, this is all racing incidents because it's all happening so fast, but no one wanted to give. That's what I take away from that incident, and now we're down about 6 or 7 trucks from the race.
It's really 2 separate incidents. You saw with the onboard there from Botafuco that Brian LaPrade gets, there's an internet issue there, and he gets tipped up into the wall, and that just stacked everybody up. He was the first truck I saw sideways until that 18 got hooked from the bottom and went back up into the outside wall, and from there, the track is blocked and nowhere for a lot of these guys to go. Motor is blown on car 23, and he's trying to coast it back into his box, and I think he's just going to come up short. Caleb.
Yeah, and I mean, like you were saying, I do think this started out as 2 separate incidents that kind of just blended into one huge one. Either way, we had a lot of trucks that are going to have some race-ending damage here. Keep in mind, no fast repair, and it just completely changes the landscape of this race.
27 to go here from Daytona. We'll talk with our in-race reporter. Wanted to get to him a little bit earlier tonight, but here he is, P2, Blake McCandless, and 2 cautions so far. We're all good as far as fuel, maybe with the potential of eNASCAR overtime. That could make things a little shaky, but here you are in P2. You like your odds?
Yeah, I think we're in a decent spot. Happy to be up here with this whole NFR machine here. Got to thank all the guys who put this set together. It allowed me to kind of jump on board. Not really planning on running any races after this, just trying to do a one-off for Daytona. But I tell you what, if we're running up here and got a shot at this thing, it's awfully tempting to keep on going.
What's the plan for the rest of the way? Obviously, we've seen in some of the races that we've watched, granted with the next gen, you want to be in second place coming off turn 4. Is it the same here in the trucks?
Kind of. I mean, the trucks are just so much different. You just kind of stall out, and you can't really build up huge runs. You can't side draft. You can't do a lot of things that you can with the next-gen cars. So I think what you want is you just want to be on the front row, whether it's the bottom, the middle, or the top. You just want to control one lane, especially here at Daytona. There's just not a whole lot of options to go like if we were at Talladega. So just try to control a lane or find a way if we can get hooked up with my teammate Zach or Larry here that's running in the lead. We'll definitely try to do that. I'm kind of here mostly to help those guys and be an extra body and a good teammate for those guys. So if we can hook up with them, we'll try to do it. And if not, we're just going to go for broke and try to get us our first Road to Pro win.
All right, Blake, well, best of luck to you, and see you here maybe in a little bit.
All right, thank you, Jacob.
That's Blake McCandless, one of the voices that you hear on the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series broadcast, along with James Plank. And let's see, made contender a year ago, back in 2021. And now here he is, pretty much just out here having a grand old time, trying to help some teammates out and maybe cash in and go to victory lane. We'll have 25 to go on the restart. Pace and McCandless on the front row. Green flag.
How will North Force Racing fare now that you are down Daniel Botafuco? You still have Pace, you still have McCandless up there, and you still have Michael P. Frisch, who's at the back end of this pack in 20th with a little bit of damage, but not as many drivers as you had, not many as proverbial bullets in the gun as you had when the green flag flew on this race some 56 laps ago. And if you're anyone else in the top 10, could you come up with some sort of co-opetition alliance, as our friend DW used to talk about when he was in the Fox booth? Can you team up with somebody who might not necessarily be your teammate, but is somebody that you work well with in order to beat the NFR trucks?
Already starting to look three wide toward the back of the field, but so far just double wide at the front. Pace on the bottom, McCandless up top. Kenny Brady to help McCandless toward the lead.
And still side by side up here. And another big thing that you got to think about here as we start to click off laps, when does that timer really set off inside all these guys' heads where hey, I need to get up front, because it is so much more challenging to really generate a run to get by people. And right now you're starting to see like even Joseph making it three wide right now, a little bit further through the pack. If you are back here, I think you do need to start thinking at least about trying to get up front here soon, because you don't want to run out of time for sure.
Time is a factor because you can't wait too long to make the move to try and win the race, especially if you're toward the back of the field. You got to get to the front as quick as you can. Right now, it's all the North Force trucks, though, at the front of the field. Pace out in front, McCandless on the outside, but they've got company behind him.
Starting to see a third lane potentially develop a little bit further back in the field as some of these drivers beginning to get antsy, starting to approach 20 laps to go. So if you're back there, maybe time to start thinking about it. It was Joseph who tried to make that third lane work, and promptly it looks like he's going straight to the back because there's not really anybody else that wants to go up there just yet. But I have a hard time believing that will stand for the final 20 laps. At some point, Jacob Hitz, we are going to see some movement up on that high line.
There's no way they can just sit here for 20 more laps. They've got to be able to make the move at some point. The clock, though, is continuing to wind down. The sand in the hourglass, it continues to get full at the bottom, emptier toward the top. McCandless with a big push, though, from Kenny Brady, and car number 22 is clear for the race lead, but he stays up on the outside.
And that was a big push from Kenny Brady right there all over the back bumper of Blake McCandless right here. And really, I feel like Pace and McCandless are in the best spots right here, where it is, you're going to have to force everybody to go the long way around you, and that's going to take even more trucks, more cooperation, and a lot of these guys aren't want to go all the way to the high side. So watching these two lanes right now, I think this is where you're going to see the race winner come from. Maybe not McCandless or Pace, depending on where we are in 21 laps, but for the time being, I feel like they're in the spot to really thrive here.
Now, we saw earlier, two trucks were able to get that third line to work, James. It was Ray Alfala working together with Kenny Brady. They were able to get that outside line rolling. The problem is now there's nobody up there to try and make that line work. I believe Joseph is the only cat up there right now. He's got no help, and he's trying to find a way back in line, but there's no hole down there in the middle.
But Alfala proved that working that third lane is possible, and I have a sneaking suspicion that a lot of these drivers in this lead pack are waiting for the right time to go out there. They don't necessarily want to go out there now, but if we get to 10 laps to go, if we get to 5 laps to go, I think we're going to see a change of heart from some people a little bit further back, and you will see that third lane come in bloom.
We're at 20 to go right now here from Daytona. Pace out in front. McCandless up on the high side. DeMerchant, Brady side by side for third. Nichols, LaPrade, Dragon, Navarro, Joseph, Blewett, your top 10. As they make their way, and here comes that third line up toward the top of the racetrack. Joseph, he's got company. Here comes Dalton Collins to push.
And he's finally got that partner. He's been trying to get it rolling, and all of a sudden now you see Eric Royce come up here, join this battle. You know, as you said, Kenny Brady was one of the guys that was really trying to establish that third line on that first run with Ray Alfala. We might see him jump ship on Blake McCandless here. You know, right now, it just takes a lot of patience. And when you don't have many trucks up here on that top lane, it's a really risky game. But now all of a sudden, you're starting to get something established here where you can ride 3 wide, and it becomes less of a risk. And, you know, the scales start to tip more in that benefit category. And you might see more guys jump up here soon. But as of right now, it's going to be 3 by 3. Looks like 4 or 5 rows deep at the moment, and it's going to be racy from here on out for sure.
3 wide, several rows deep. Back to turn 1. Pace on the bottom. McCandless leading that middle line, but Joseph flying up on the outside of the racetrack. We saw him win at Las Vegas, rather just fall at Las Vegas. He ran out of fuel mere feet from the finish. Oh, McCandless gets turned by Kenny Brady. Big crash on the back straightaway. Cars scattering through the grass. McCandless turned around off the bumper of Kenny Brady, Blaze Crawford, Jake Nichols, all involved. And the caution back out, third time tonight. And some of those drivers did an incredible job of avoiding the crash after McCandless gets hooked by Kenny Brady, and Joseph got kind of squeezed up against the outside wall, and he has a lot of damage to that 31. Dalton Collins also has a good amount of damage to the front end of that 19. 3 wide, you get the replay right here.
2 words, and I don't need to say anything more. Bad bump.
Yep.
That's a tough break for Candles right there. I mean, again, it felt like he and Larry Pace kind of had the line there. You saw that outside lane as they started to get packed up there. They picked the worst time to finally get formed up. As soon as they did, like you said, James, a bad bump from Kenny Brady right there, going to send the 22 straight into him. And now all of a sudden they're going to have to get reformed on this restart if they want to have a shot. But lots of new faces up here. Joseph now sitting in the second position. You know, Dalton Collins is up inside the top 5 as well. So on board with Blaze here.
He's going to get a piece of this. Gets on the brakes. Oh, he gets hit from behind and gets turned around. And that's where his damage comes from here under this caution flag. Couple of trucks coming on to pit lane to fix the damage. We'll talk with the 22 once again. Blake, what happened?
I got turned from behind. Was just riding in line and just, got wrecked. So, unfortunate, but not surprising. we'll see here. We got 30 seconds optional. It's actually a lot better than I thought we'd make it out. So,
Wow.
I mean, we're still in this thing here, but yeah, is what it is.
Obviously, you're going to be coming through the field here with under 15 laps to go. Do you still think you're going to have a shot here to carve your way up to the front?
I don't know, man. Like, everything kind of just, once you get 3 wide, it's hard to make moves. So it just really depends on how many other trucks got caught up in that. I know we've had a couple wrecks here. So it's just kind of a numbers game at this point. I know we've had a couple of our guys fall out. I'll be rooting on Larry, though. Hope he's able to get it done up there.
All right, Blake, thanks for your time. Go get him.
Thank you.
Driver of the 22 truck, who is on the pit lane right now. No, he's already back on the racetrack trying to catch up. He is in the 23rd position right now. We'll go downstairs one more time here to Justin Malillo. What you got?
Thank you, Jacob. I'm just looking at the field that we've got. It's pretty thin compared to where we were earlier in this race. Larry Pace and Joseph up in the top 2 spots, but I'm really wondering about that damage that the 31 truck is taking on. These trucks, as opposed to what we normally have in like the next gen with the Coke series, they don't really have that side draft ability. So these guys can get as close as they want to the next truck, but it's really not going to make that much of a difference. So that's why you get more of this gridlock racing that we got here. I'd say that our best bet for our winner tonight is probably going to come from within the top 10 here on the final restart.
I think it's a pretty solid prediction. Now, if the whole field blows up, obviously that could change, but I think being in the top 10 here, especially if we can stay green, is a pretty solid speculation.
I would say that I've seen trucks win from 29th before, specifically in a league that I'm in. So anything could happen here at these super speedways, Jacob. I just think though that these guys are going to be disciplined. I hope that these guys are disciplined because it's not going to matter as much to win and finish second as it is if you're going to finish 20th, because you need every point that you can get to make the next round of the qualifying series.
No doubt about it. Getting set for the restart here. By the way, Joseph got sandwiched up against the outside wall. He had that damage. He is still on the racetrack in position number 2. We'll see how much that damage could hurt him. Kenny Brady's still up there as well. Remember, he delivered the contact to McCandless that turned him around. 14 laps to go here from Daytona. Pace and Joseph on the front row. Still plenty of trucks left. Green flag.
Outside lane got a good launch here. Not as good as Larry Pace, but I mean, they stuck together a lot more, and we'll see the benefits of that as they come through turn 1 here with Kenny Brady on the back end of Joseph right now as this inside lane gets regrouped back up. Already, though, you're starting to see this is Kwame Scott with Kyle Dragon trying to get this third lane going. And right now, only 3 trucks, but they might have some.
Man! Brady almost pushing that 31 around, just like he did to McCandless. Still 3 wide. Here comes Kwame Scott up on the outside of the racetrack. Kyle Dragon to push. They're 3 wide off turn 4. Pace on the bottom. Joseph in the middle, and Kwame Scott for the first time all night. He's in the picture.
Did I not say that the outside lane was going to come in at some point this evening? Here we are, 3 wide as I expected, with just over 10 laps to go. I'm a little surprised that Kwame Scott is the one leading that high line just because he's had damage to his nose for most of this race, but it doesn't seem to be affecting him that much. He's right there with Joseph and right there with Larry Pace for the race lead.
Down the back straightaway, getting closer and closer to that 10 lap to go mark. Here from Daytona. By the way, Ray Alfala back on the racetrack, 49 laps down, and he's only going to get 1 more spot out of it, though, because of how long he's been sitting on the pit lane. Still, 3 wide at the front now. Pace is clear. It's 3 wide for second. Coming to 12 laps to go from Daytona. Joseph holding down the fort in the middle. Here comes Kwame Scott up on the outside.
And this is something kind of new here that we've seen. You know, with the next gen, you haven't really been able to see a third line form with all the side drafting going on. But here we have these guys all just bunched up together, all packed together, and coming off turn 2 here. It's a new dynamic here, but I mean, it feels old, really traditional pack racing style going on here.
Coming to 11 to go. Kwame Scott up on the outside of the racetrack, your leader. Here comes Pace back on the bottom. So far, the bumps have been good. We'll see if they can hold on. They've got 11 to go here at the start-finish line.
Still 3x3x3 trucks in that outside lane, and you would think they may get a little bit more help, but some of these people towards the back of the pack a little bit more content with riding in the middle as opposed to up top. There goes Seth the Merchant now sliding high to leave Larry Pace out, and then a bigger move up top there that nearly put Kwame Scott in the wall. It is 3 wide proper down the back straightaway and off into turn 3. I can't totally tell who that is on the high line. I believe it is, yes, Kenny Brady, who jumped out top, but with all that damage to the front of his truck, lots of anchor-like action. The top line is not going at all. Jacob Hitz.
Little treat for the folks watching at home, radio style for the final 10 laps. Seth the Merchant leads in the middle, Larry Pace on the bottom side of the racetrack. Side by side for the first 2 rows, Kenny Brady leading the top side, the field back to turn 1.
Yeah, and right now you still see all 3. This third line starting to fade a little bit, and up at the front, it's still Seth the Merchant alongside Larry Pace. They're side by side for the lead. Joseph pushing behind him. Kenny Brady with Kwame Scott on the high lane, starting to come back in this third lane, and they're still just wobbling all over the racetrack right now, all packed up. And it's still 3x3.
We'll try it again. 9 to go. Here from Daytona, still 3 wide at the front as they head back to turn number 1. 3 wide, third on back, almost contact. Pace on the bottom, DeMerchant in the middle. 9 to go at Daytona, the field's to turn 1.
And right now, still 3x3 up front. It's Seth the Merchant, Larry Pace. Joseph's pushing on the with Dalton Collins right to his inside. Drew Freynage right here. Kenny Brady and Kwame Scott up on the high line, though, coming with a run just a little bit, and it's still really hard right now.
Seth the Merchant in control of that middle lane. It's Larry Pace down to the bottom. Kenny Brady still with all that damage, holding the high line, but Pace out in front by maybe a truck length or so over to Merchant, who's got a truck length on Brady coming out of turn 4.
Here they come down the front straightaway back toward the start-finish line. 8 laps to go here at Daytona. Still side by side at the front. Kenny Brady trying to get that third line to work. He's got damage on the front. He's got damage on the back. And that third line is receding as the field goes to turn 1.
Yeah, just a complete loss of momentum on this outside with Pace and DeMerchant still gridlocked here. Side by side on the bottom 2 rows with Collins, Joseph. LaPrade is pushing on the outside lane. And the outside lane trying to come back, though.
Outside lane really has fallen off here. DeMerchant and Pace still in control. DeMerchant looked up high for a little bit and thought about it. Meanwhile, Andrew Navarro trying to lead this group with a little bit better truck than what Kenny Brady has, but it's still Pace and DeMerchant door-to-door Alpha 4.
Navarro now leading that third line. He's still stuck 3 wide for the 5th position. Coming to 7 laps to go from Daytona. DeMerchant leading the middle. He's out in front. Joseph to push. Larry Pace on the bottom with help from Dalton Collins back to turn 1.
Here comes Andrew Navarro, though, on the outside. He's trying to make it a 3-horse race for the lead with Pace and DeMerchant. Collins with a push on the inside lane to nudge that inside lane out just a little bit. But here comes the middle line once again. Down the backstretch we come, and it's still side by side between Pace and DeMerchant.
DeMerchant Pace. We continue to talk about those two. Meanwhile, Navarro's been able to make up some ground on DeMerchant in that high line. He's now just 1 truck length back, but they need more help. They'll need somebody from the back of this middle lane to jump up top and make that third lane viable.
6 laps to go when they hit the start-finish line here at the Daytona International Speedway through the 18-degree tri-oval. Still side by side, but here comes Navarro with the push from Kenny Brady. A clean front end for truck number 11. 3 wide for third. Here he comes for the lead.
6 laps to go, and we're 3 wide up here for the lead. That outside lane starting to fall back once again, though. Do we see Seth the Merchant jump up? Right now, he still sticks with this middle line, and it's Larry Pace out front with Dalton Collins. A push from Joseph, and here comes Navarro back as well.
DeMerchant now with a head of steam, getting a really big push from Joseph. Navarro is trying to side draft that middle lane, but to no avail. DeMerchant will have the ability to pop up top if he needs it, if he decides he wants it, but he'll stay in the middle for now, coming to 5 laps to go.
Here they come. They get one hand from Barney the Flagman. 5 to go. Truck number 5 out in front. It's Seth the Merchant. He leads at the stripe. He has that middle line all to himself. Clear on the outside. Still has pace at his quarter panel back to the turn.
And nudging out in front is Seth the Merchant with push from Joseph behind, who has no other choice, being gridlocked in by these other 2 lines. Dalton Collins on the inside with a huge shove to Pace as well. Pace has the lead, but here comes DeMerchant, Navarro as well.
Big run from DeMerchant this time, and Navarro too. They'll edge ahead of Larry Pace entering turn 3, but Pace will be able to draw even with that tighter radius on the bottom, and then get past DeMerchant and Navarro. It is gridlock at the front. Still no movement amongst about the top 20 coming out of 4.
3 wide as they make their way back down to the start-finish line. 4 laps to go. Little Wiggly at the front of the field, still side by side. DeMerchant out in front by a nose over Larry Pace. Pace now, he pokes his nose out in front. Navarro still a truck length back on the outside.
And it is still a standstill through this pack right now. DeMerchant and Pace out front. Navarro up here on the outside. They just outside lane, not getting anything going, but here comes Joseph, and he jumps out now to the outside. It's 3 wide once again for the lead with Navarro with a shove.
Joseph has decided to make his move, so he goes chopped. The Merchant will hold middle. That now means that Dalton Collins is pushing Larry Pace, and Drew Freenos is down on the inside, and Michael P. Frisch is in the middle as well, trying to push Brian LaPrade and Seth the Merchant to the front.
Coming to 3 laps to go. We do have 3 attempts at eNASCAR overtime if we need them, but we got to get a little bit closer to the white flag first. Larry Pace out in front. DeMerchant in the middle. Joseph now leading the outside line. Help from Navarro. 3 wide at turn 1.
Does the outside have anything? Is it starting to dissipate? James Holzer jumps up now, and it's 4 trucks on the outside trying to power around the rest of this pack. Larry Pace has the position right now on DeMerchant, but here comes Joseph again, side by side for second and maybe the lead.
Joseph there, Seth DeMerchant there, Larry Pace maintaining that inside line. He's able to hold the lead at the stripe, but when the outside really pushes, when everybody is fighting for track position, will it be that way in 2 laps time?
You could say Larry Pace setting the pace down on the bottom of the racetrack. Had to shoehorn that one somewhere in there. 2 laps to go at the start-finish line. All over this racetrack, there are more than a dozen cars under a blanket. The field back to turn number 1. Pace out in front by a nose.
And any time now for Joseph. Can this outside lane get reformed back up? It's still DeMerchant, Pace, and Joseph. And right now on the inside, these 2 are just still at a standstill, at an impasse. And here comes Joseph once again. 3-horse race for the win.
Joseph trying to get that run on the high line, but there's just nothing either of these top lanes can do. And will the inside be able to carry the momentum with Larry Pace, or will the outside finally get the help they need to get around that Chevy Silverado and get to the front here, coming to the white flag at Daytona?
Larry Pace out in front as the field makes their way to the start-finish line. White flag in the wind. 1 more lap to go at Daytona. DeMerchant out in front. Joseph looking 3 wide up on the outside of the racetrack. He's got the push from Navarro. Is it enough? The field back in 1.
If this outside lane wants a chance, they're going to have to do it now. It's 3 wide through turns 1 and 2 for the final time. But Larry Pace still with control of this race as Dalton Collins pushes. They make contact behind him. They're still 3 wide, and this outside line is surging with Joseph.
Joseph has momentum. That bump that Collins got into with DeMerchant might be enough to send DeMerchant clear. Entering turn 3, he tried to get down there, and he's just not quite there. That kills the momentum of the middle lane, and Larry Pace thunders from the inside back to the lead off of turn 4 for the last time.
Pace with the help from Collins. Will anybody try to side draft? Almost 3 wide. There's contact. Here's DeMerchant to the outside at the line. Give the finish to Larry Pace by 5 1/1000ths of a second. Make it a cool 4 1/1000ths of a second. Larry Pace will win race number 1 in the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series at Daytona.
of all the North Force drivers that had problems tonight, it was the last one at the front of the field that was able to make it stick. And I think that's a very, very big statement made about what you can do if you have track position in these vehicles of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Say that 10 times fast. We're not used to that. Almost a throwback, right? But still, if you've got control of the inside, it worked out. And even with the run that DeMerchant and Joseph had on the high line, somehow, some way, Larry Pace was able to make up that gap in the chute coming to the finish line and just edge ahead of Seth DeMerchant by 4/1,000ths of a second.
See if we can get a replay after Larry Pace burns down the house of that last lap here from Daytona. And Caleb might be the luckiest guy on the face of the planet. We got to the finish. His internet just got knocked out. I can't believe that we held it together for those final 10 laps. And right at the end, everything goes south for him. But you know what? We all made it to the line. Nobody got hurt. There was a wreck coming to the line. This is coming to the white flag. Can see DeMerchant just barely out in front, and I didn't think that Joseph had the shot, but boy, James, he got a whale of a run down the back straightaway.
He had a chance. I thought that you'll see the bump here with DeMerchant and Dalton Collins right in the center of your screen, right about there. I thought that moment might have been curtains for everybody on the inside. I thought that the momentum that they lost might be enough to kill off Larry Pace, and it nearly was. Seth DeMerchant tried to get clear of Larry Pace coming down the back straightaway into turn 3 and almost had it, but didn't quite have it, and then tried to jump back down. And he got into Pace, and then it killed his momentum, and that may ultimately have been what won Pace this race.
Run to the line. A great push there in the middle. They're 4 wide on the apron. You see Frisch get turned up and into the outside wall, and it's Pace, again, by 4/1000ths of a second. Your winner in the top split, and DeMerchant is 4/1000ths away of sweeping Daytona in back-to-back years. There's your results. Pace the winner, DeMerchant second. Briar LaPrade finishes third. Dalton Collins fourth. Joseph finishes fifth. Drew Freinage finishes in sixth. Michael P. Frisch seventh. Kenny Brady eighth. Blake McCandless rebounded. He restarted 23rd there with 14 to go. He finishes ninth. Andrew Navarro here, James, rounding out the top 10.
11th this evening was River Hayes. Kwame Scott comes home with the 12th spot. 13th went to Justin Yee. James Holzer finished in the 14th position. 15th went to Brian Mercurio. Jake Nichols was 16th this evening. 17th on the final running order went to Eric Royce. Kyle Dragon was 18th. It was 19th for Joel Blewett. And Brad Mahar rounded out the top 20.
Logan Clampett finishes 21st. I know this was pretty much a one-off for him. He retired from the Coke Series last year and tweeted earlier today that, you know what, I think I'm going to run Daytona. He finishes 21st in what we expect to be his only start. Eduardo Oliveira finishes 22nd. Zach Nichols, the last car in the lead lap in 23rd. Then it's Casey Tucker, Blaze Crawford, Dominic Lukomsky, Adriano Pinheiro, Daniel Botafuco. He had a good run going tonight, couldn't quite hold it off. Justin Trombley, Christopher Pfeffer, and then your final 5 trucks. Alfala, Hogan, Liebert, Terlindi, Vroman. He had connection issues pretty much all night. And that's your field of 35 here at Daytona. Let's talk with our race winner in Larry Pace. And boy, you did everything you had to do right at the line to get win number 1 to start the season. Larry, congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much. I absolutely kept my foot to the floor and just drove around the bottom the whole time. So it was expertly done, I suppose.
I know you had a lot of teammates with you throughout this race, but they weren't all necessarily with you there at the very end of the race. Kind of got separated. Take us through that last lap. Try to hold off DeMerchant on the outside, and even Joseph up by the wall.
I kept my foot in it, and I stayed at the bottom. That's pretty much all I could do. I know there's going to be some side drafting coming to the line, but I was just hoping that I got a better push and ended up getting the better push. So I'm pretty happy about that. You mentioned my teammates. Yeah, it's my first race at North Force Racing. I have to thank everybody there for the support and help. Definitely starting off the season right.
looking ahead, 2 weeks from now, we start the mile-and-a-half section of the schedule, Las Vegas, in 2 weeks. We've had some fantastic races there over these last couple of years. Your thoughts going into Vegas here in 2 weeks?
Excited to see how we do. I'm definitely excited to get to some mile-and-a-half tracks. I know it's going to be a bit of speedway racing there too, but I believe in our guys at NFR and SRD, so I think we'll be bringing hot rods and definitely looking forward to it. Hopefully get the Swag Designs Chevy up front again.
Larry, congratulations on the win, and we will see you next week. No, 2 weeks from Las Vegas.
Thank you guys for what you do too. Appreciate it.
That's Larry Pace, your race winner tonight here from Daytona. Let's talk with our second place finisher here with James Pike. It is Seth the Merchant.
Seth the Merchant, the Mater, now joins us here in the booth. And Seth, just from your perspective, what was that last lap like? What happened?
Just a lot of side drafting, and I think I had too much of a gap going into 3 and 4, and it allowed Larry to get a huge run. And we just couldn't get the run back in time for the line. Briar was doing a heck of a job pushing, pretty much doing everything he could, but the truck was just a little bit too damaged from the prior wreck. I think Larry was able to edge us out there.
I have to play devil's advocate for a little bit because you may have noticed, I figured you probably would have felt the bump between you and Dalton Collins, so you and Joseph had a ton of momentum down the back straightaway. You tried to clear yourself in front of Larry Pace, coming out of 3, you make contact, it slows you down. If you hold middle, do you feel like the finish to this race plays out differently?
I'm not sure, because I felt like, I don't know. I was trying to play it out in my mind because I saw that I was almost going to clear Larry into 3, and I felt like if I pulled in front of him, I would have shot clear. So I started inching down in case I did, and then I think we side drafted a little bit, and then it pulled him back beside me, and then I was so close to Dalton that we all kind of stalled out for a second. But then I don't know, it helped Briar get back onto me there for a second, and we were able to shoot back out to get another run off of 4. So I don't know, we did everything we could, and Briar, I just got to thank him, man. He was doing a heck of a job.
How difficult was it to work tonight, given that, so many of your teammates at Altus found their way into Coke? You're here. You don't have as much help in the top split as you've had in past seasons, but did you find it more difficult to work with other cars, other trucks, or were you able to just sort of find your way and pick it apart the same way you would any sort of standard official race?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot harder because, when you have teammates, you can do some pit strategies and stuff, and NFR really nailed it with their strategy to end up getting the lead there right when that yellow came out. And when you're by yourself, there's stuff like that you can't do. But I got a huge shout out to Kenny Brady and Andrew Navarro. They messaged me before the race, and we were working together there a little bit. And all the help you can get helps you on these plate tracks, especially coming down to the end when you need a pusher, or pit strategies, or anything like that. The more cars, the merrier.
Also, for what it's worth, we'll share this with you. One Tucker Minter, who was victorious at Daytona on Tuesday night, just jumped into the chat and said, this is a Seth the Merchant appreciation post. So, Seth, I guess you have some famous fans in chat who are rooting for you tonight, perhaps?
Well, that's a teammate right there. So, big shout out to Tucker Minter winning the Coke race. He's a heck of a driver.
We have Altus Esports strong now with Coke Series representation and representation on the podium tonight. Seth the Merchant comes home runner-up this evening.
We'll talk with our third place finisher here, Briar LaPrade, in just a second. And since the Tennessee Power Grid failed us, instead of going to Caleb Hoffman, we go to Justin Malillo.
Thank you, Jacob. Briar LaPrade, finisher of third place tonight. Briar, you were involved in the lap 52, you were involved in the lap 63, and still yet you were able to bring it home in third place. Tell us about that. Tell us how you were able to manage that.
I don't know. I just kept my foot in it, like good old Larry Pace said, and I just held middle. I had over a minute of damage after the first incident. Jarrett Liebert was actually on top of my truck. It just literally squished my truck down to the ground, and we had a minute of damage, and we were actually down on some RPM. So I had some engine damage. So I was trying my best to push Seth, but I just had to check into 3. I got a little scared there that we were all going to wreck, but still just tried my best to push Seth all the way up to the front, and almost worked, but not quite. But yeah, we'll take third after being involved in the first wreck where I had a truck on top of me, and then the second wreck where I believe that was when I got launched into the wall when we were about 4 wide. And then, yeah, the last wreck I believe was the leaders, I think Blake and all that whole deal, and I went mowing through the grass. I had to take my lawnmower through the grass and hit the long clip for Sunday's Daytona 500. And yeah, I don't know how I ended up third, but it's probably because of the Ryko performance speed that we had. Shout out to those guys for building such a great truck, great speed. I don't know what happened in qualifying. I think just the wind just didn't like me. We had a bunch of big old fans down in turn 3, just aimed down the backstretch on me. So at least we got fans looking at me, I guess, but that's not the right type of fan. But yeah, RykoPerformance.com. Shout out to them for bringing good speed. Of course, Ledford Billiard Supply. Great guy, Cameron Ledford. So shout out to him. And let's see, we got Roasted Jim's Coffee. I got a new team here, so we got to figure all these sponsors out. Roasted Jim's Coffee and Garza Law Firm.
Well, this is for the fans here. This is that's what FTF stands for. So glad that we got that out of the way and squared away. You were talking over the radio there towards the end with Seth DeMerchant that you were getting a little bit hot there. Do you think if you hadn't had that issue, that if you would have been able to push him forward and had a little bit better chance to possibly go for the win?
Well, yeah, actually, at the end there, I think I had enough temp. I was trying to save the temp to be able to push them all the way. And like I said, I think what got me was having to check up into 3. I had enough temp to just be locked on and get going. I was just worried I didn't have enough motor because all the damage I had. But ended up, we actually had enough temp. I think I just started blinking coming to the checkered. So it was perfect timing on my end. And yeah, just had to sit back and save for a little bit. But I was worried about the bottom clearing or the top clearing. And I was just trying to help Seth out best I can, get the line moving forward. But did the best we could, and P3 to start the year. I'll take it.
2 weeks from now, you're going to be heading to Las Vegas. How do you think your chances are going to be there?
Probably equivalent to this. It's pretty much another super speedway with it being night. And then we have Atlanta, another super speedway. And then we got Texas, pretty much another super speedway. So 4 super speedways to start the year. I don't know. Or I'd say the chances are all equivalent. But like I said, the Ryko performance speed that we'll bring to each race is going to be good, and looking forward to competing up front.
Fair enough, Briar. Congratulations on the 3rd place finish tonight.
Thank you guys for the broadcast.
Brian LaPrade, your 3rd place finisher tonight here from Daytona. And James, boy, oh boy, what a finish that we've had here at Daytona. Solid race, beginning to end, and didn't go caution-free, but it also wasn't a crash fest.
It was interesting how those cautions spaced themselves out. Usually I feel like we get them more in bursts, but they were actually relatively consistent if you go back and look at when they happened and how evenly they were spaced out amongst the course of these 80 laps. So it worked out nicely for everybody. It took fuel strategy out of the equation. It bunched everybody up at the end. And as we said at the beginning, yes, you need a little bit of skill. You also need a little bit of luck too. Larry Pace was skilled enough to keep himself up front. Lucky enough to survive the run from Seth DeMerchant. He's in victory lane and picks up max points to start at Daytona, which is not always a given. It's a great place to get a victory, not just because it's Daytona, but because you don't have that pressure of having to dig yourself out of a hole that you may have if you're Jarrett Liebert or a Boyd Hogan or a Ray Alfalla who didn't have a good finish this evening.
Well, and you have to remember as well, Seth DeMerchant, your winner of the race a season ago in the top split, he made it all the way to contender, so he rode that momentum pretty much the rest of the way through the first part of round 1 of the qualifying iRacing series and took that into round 2 and kept it going to contender. So Seth DeMerchant had the the start with 1 foot forward last year. Larry Pace is going to have the start with 1 foot forward this year. A lot coming up.
He's setting the pace.
Yeah, there you go.
I feel like
I've heard that line before.
we should probably go off air now, shouldn't we?
Yeah, something like that. Upcoming on FTF, Autobahn returns on Monday. That's February 20th, 9:15 p.m. Eastern. They're at Belle Isle in Detroit. It's a quiet week otherwise. This weekend we're off because real race cars at Daytona. So we are back after Daytona with Autobahn on Monday, and then we don't have anything until Saturday Saturday night, February 25th, 9 o'clock Eastern. The Barvizslas FTF Cup Series is at Auto Club Speedway. Sunday at 8 o'clock, the Winstell Gen 4 Challenge is back 2003, the year this year. They'll be at Legacy Daytona to kick things off that Sunday, February 26th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. What a race it was here from Daytona. Larry Pace, your winner. 1 down, 7 to go. We're back with you here on FTF for the eNASCAR Qualifying iRacing Series with Race 2 from Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It's 2 weeks from tonight, Thursday, March 2nd, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern, here on FTF.gg. For Zach Johnson, our producer, for Justin Malillo, Long Island's crew chief, and for Caleb Hoffman and James Pike alongside me, I'm Jacob Pitts. Thank you so much for watching tonight here from Daytona. We'll see you in 2 weeks from Las Vegas.